All right, let's jump right into it. From a humble, unassuming little riverside settlement to an unmatched global superpower, and then a catastrophic collapse. In this explainer, we're going to trace the massive, dramatic life cycle of ancient Rome. Just to wrap our heads around the sheer magnitude of this history, picture the Colosseum. Imagine it glowing with fire torches under a dark night sky. I mean, this truly was the empire that ruled the world. When we think of Rome, we usually imagine massive stone architecture, right? And legions of soldiers. It's this heavy, epic history that absolutely still captivates us today. Section 1. Village to Global Superpower. You know, it's kind of hard to imagine, but a tiny cluster of mud and wood structures right beside the River Tabor, that was the seed of the entire empire. As generations passed, young warriors honed these intense combat skills that would literally define their culture. And pretty soon, those busy little merchant streets transformed. They made way for a professional army, marching under those iconic red banners, basically creating an unstoppable military machine that stretched all the way across Europe, Africa, and Asia. But here's the thing, it wasn't just brute force that expanded Rome's borders. It was incredible tactical brilliance. Picture these generals meticulously planning battles inside war tents by candlelight. And here's a wild fact for you. Roman legions were so disciplined, they could build a heavily fortified camp completely from scratch in just a few hours every single night. That insane level of organization, that is exactly what allowed their perfectly synchronized shield walls to conquer the known world. Section 2. The Rise and Fall of Caesar. Now, no figure commanded a crowd quite like Julius Caesar. He was wildly popular with the everyday citizens, delivering these highly dramatic speeches right in the Roman Forum. But, as you can probably guess, his immense influence created a really tense political atmosphere. Simply put, the more the public loved him, the more the elite political class feared him. Looking at the historical record here neutrally, we can track exactly how this political tension boiled over. As Caesar's power became absolute, threatened senators secretly hatched a drastic plan. Picture the sheer tension as Caesar enters the Senate room, leading to that famous, shocking assassination. You've got a fallen leader and absolute chaos flooding the streets. And it's actually in the wake of this very chaos that the public ultimately traded the messy freedom of a republic for the ironclad stability of an emperor. Section 3. The Peak of the Roman Empire. So, under emperors ruling from golden thrones, Rome reached its absolute zenith. We are talking about sprawling megacities here. I mean, Rome itself had a population of over 1 million people. That is a scale of urbanization we wouldn't see again in Europe until the 19th century. These giant cities were connected by highly engineered networks of roads and ships. But, it was also a culture of spectacular, dangerous entertainment. Imagine roaring crowds filling the Colosseum for intense gladiator combat. This was a civilization at the absolute height of its confidence. Oh, and another really fun fact. They actually had the ancient equivalent of fast food joints. They were called thermopolia, and they served up quick hot meals to those busy Roman crowds. Section 4. Corruption, Decay, and Invasion. The contrast we see in this era is just staggering. On one hand, you had those perfectly disciplined armies, grand cities, and absolute power. But on the other, you start seeing the creeping reality of decline. We're talking undisciplined soldiers, nobles obsessed with corrupt dealings, and the terrifying threat of barbarian armies gathering under stormy skies. The very machine that built the empire was faltering right when it was needed most. Basically, the empire was fracturing from within. The luxury of the palace bred corruption, and that led to betrayal among the Roman nobles, which eventually trickled down into a devastating loss of discipline in the military ranks. This internal rot totally set the stage for disaster, as external pressure from those barbarian armies kept mounting. It forced Rome into these desperate final battles, where once feared soldiers had to fight in damaged armor against totally impossible odds. Section 5. The Fall of Rome. Eventually, the magnificent city is breached. Buildings burn as citizens desperately try to escape in a bid for survival. And right in the middle of all this chaos, the last Western Roman emperor sits on his throne, lonely and completely defeated. Those bustling streets of merchants and grand forums, they're suddenly replaced by broken statues and abandoned roads. So, after centuries of total dominance, and then this chaotic collapse, we really have to ask ourselves, what actually remains of a great civilization after it falls? When the vines creep over the marble and the dust finally settles on the Colosseum, what is actually left? Which brings us to Section 6, an empire's enduring legacy. Well, over the centuries, historians began unearthing the remnants of this massive civilization. We're talking Roman artifacts, old historical books, and ancient coins. Surprisingly, some things, like the exact chemical recipe for incredibly durable Roman concrete, were entirely lost to time and only decoded really recently. But every excavated coin, every broken fragment, it all helps us piece together this deeply human story. And here is what I really want you to take away from all this. If an empire that ruled the entire known world, with the best engineers, the most disciplined armies, and the greatest wealth imaginable, can ultimately rot and collapse from within, what does that teach us about the societal structures, governments, and corporations we build today? The epic cycle of Rome's rise and fall, it isn't just ancient history. It remains one of humanity's most fascinating and urgent lessons. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep asking those big questions, and I'll see you next time.